You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to episode 186 of Flipping the Birds. Wow. So I'm trying to pour some honey on there really quick. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Eric Reese and Morgan Burkett. Oh wait, Morgan.
Yeah. No, you can say it in the pot. I'm just saying.
Oh, make up your mind, bro. Is it Morgan Burkett or just Morgan? Like, are we doing the Prince thing or are we doing like?
I mean, you can call me whatever you want. I'm just saying, people know our first names by now. I feel like we're on a first name basis with the fans. So
I can agree to that.
They know my first name.
Yeah.
They know my first name. It's Jason. Everybody calls me that.
There you go.
How you guys feeling today, man?
Fantastic.
Wait, tell me. Before you finish that statement, I want to know how you're feeling, Eric. I don't want to know what you're going to talk about on the podcast. I want to know how you're feeling. Tell me how Eric is feeling. Eric, the human being.
Yeah. I'm feeling fantastic, but a lot of it does have to do with it being Dallas week and winning. Being, having the Eagles, as the team, they won. Boom. That has everything to do with my mood going into a Monday. So, yeah, we're feeling good. Feeling great.
It's Tuesday, though.
Hey.
Fuck. It is Tuesday. Well, sometimes you don't know what day it is.
How you feeling, Morgan?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good. I don't know what day of the week it is either, Eric. So, shit.
No, you did. You just literally told me it was Tuesday.
No, Brian said that. He's the dictator of days over here. Like, whatever. No.
You emphasize dictator.
It's all, time is a construct, Brian. Get with it. I'm feeling good too, man. I don't know. There's a certain it's nice to have a bye week now because I feel like there's been so many years where there's a bye week, like in week 4 or something like that, some bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
But it's nice to have a break now and kind of just I'm excited to the weather's getting colder and all that stuff. I don't want to deal with it, so it's nice to be able to not watch the Eagles this week in stress and then come back in a week later and still be 8-1. Again, I know we're not talking just the Eagles, but there's certain something this time of year when football gets a little more intense. You're figuring out jockeying for position in the playoffs and the weather's getting colder. It's just a good time of the year, man.
I have a question.
That had a lot more to do with the football with mine.
Yeah.
It's just going to say that.
Does Canada have a daylight savings time? Is that a thing up there?
It got dark at 4 p.m. today.
Dude,
so my wife and I were speaking about this. I think she Googled the answer. It has something to do with farmers. But what is the purpose of daylight savings time? Why the hell do I need it to be dark out at 5 o'clock p.m.? Why can't it still be light out 5 o'clock p.m.? Why do I have to be? Why do I have to recognize that my bedtime is coming up?
I don't know how it is in the States, but there's specific provinces in Canada that don't do daylight savings. Out west, I think it's Alberta doesn't. So there's 2 provinces that just don't do it. Because for that same reason, it's dumb.
I'm just going to take a shot in the dark and say the only point to it is probably has something to do with farming. And I don't know anything about farming, so I'm not even going to try to guess the point of it. But it probably has something to do with farming because the only reason why I guessed that is because everybody came into my work the other day with their garden stuff and said, we had to do the harvest. It was getting too cold. So this probably has something to do with that.
It does have something to do with farming. Now, when you say you're taking a shot in the dark, it's 5 p.m. dark or it's 8 p.m. dark?
This was probably more so 4:30, 5:30 dark because it was around that time. Hey, look, I got basically an hour of sleep back. I mean, I don't really sleep too much anyhow. That's probably why I don't know what day.
Exactly. What is sleep? What is sleep nowadays? But speaking of sleep, right? I mean, the Eagles put it to rest. They defeated the Cowboys. They are 3-0 in the division. They are 8-1 in the season. Top of the conference. A nail biter of a game came down to the last damn play of the game, and it came down to the secondary. We're definitely going to evaluate the secondary, but I think first and foremost, we got to talk about Eric's favorite subject, who he's been ripping apart all season long, the offense. Brian Johnson, Jalen Hurts. It looks like the band's back together. Everybody's got it going on. It looks good out there. I mean, outside of the Dallas Goedert injury, I mean, the offense is running behind a very well oiled machine named Jalen Hurts. He's been very efficient. I think he had a completion percentage of nearly like 78%, if I'm mistaken, or
78%, just a little bit over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was a good day for sure. The whole offense though, not just for Jalen Hurts. The only gripe I guess I really have is at the very end with the clock management. And Morgan, you nailed it on the head when you were calling your prediction. You brought up the clock management, and boy, did that suck. It should have never put the Cowboys in a position to be within the game. Better yet, I don't even want to talk about the 70 yards we gave them on a pretty much on all penalties. But as far as the game itself is concerned and the time management at the very end, I think that was the only real bugaboo from the Eagles in that game. I really think that the offense kind of sailed in the right direction, and they held off they obviously never really surrendered much of a lead where you kind of felt like, oh man, like the Cowboys are going to come back in this. I felt like the Eagles were in complete control. And the very end, it was kind of like, you had that kind of feeling of like, oh, is this going to be the rug swept underneath my feet? Because I felt like the Eagles controlled this whole game.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Brian's just figuring some stuff out on the back end, fella. He was clicking, so we don't want him to click. Yeah, shout out to technology and stuff. But I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, I feel like I'm on the same page, man. Like it was just a game that the Eagles were in control of throughout, up until the very end, it seemed. And I mean, thank goodness they kind of escaped with the win, but really gave the Cowboys an opportunity to hang around there. And, when you're talking about discipline towards the end of a game, like, of course, it's going to be the rookies. Jalen Carter got caught with that penalty late, and, it happens. But to have, a rivalry game like that, may end up deciding the division later on, who knows? You really can't have those kind of mistakes. So that's definitely something that they have to clean up. And unfortunately, it hasn't been the first time the Eagles have kind of let a team come back into the game. Luckily, again, like they're so good at kind of controlling the clock and playing that time game that it clearly mattered. But yeah, just disappointing to see them let a team that really shouldn't be hang around. But I think that goes to show you how good the Eagles can be if they limit those mistakes.
No, absolutely. And just comparing the two offenses, I felt like Dallas could be in a shootout with Philadelphia. They were. Philadelphia's defense let up a ton of passing yards. Dak Prescott had a fine day, through the air. Those kind of statistics, you would think, man, like that's a team that that should probably win. Except for when you step out of bounds when you're trying to dive into the end zone, or when you don't break the plane with the football as you're on what third or fourth and goal, whatever that was. I think it was fourth. Yeah, I mean, but the Eagles came up big on certain plays, and that's what our defense kind of does. We let you own the middle of the field, which Dallas pretty much did, and we button up in the red zone. Looking at those offenses though, it came down to finishing, and that's why I think Jalen Hurts, even though he didn't throw for a touchdown Dak did, didn't throw for 40 yards that Dak did, he had, I think, the more impressive day between the two quarterbacks. And what I will say in addition to is I'll give the flowers right to CD Lamb, because I did go out of my way to say that AJ Brown was going to have more yards, and he did not. But at the end of the day, who contributed to the victory? That's where I'm going to change my argument to. I'm going to move the goalpost just a tad bit.
Yeah, I mean, you're allowed to. You're just podcast, no one holds us accountable anyways, right? So, but hey, credit to you though. What we did see in the red zone later in the game was Darius Slay on CD Lamb, and it ended up mattering. So they moved him into the slot when CD moved in the slot, and that's something that we had talked about is the Dallas Cowboys were going to find ways to exploit that matchup. They're not as balanced as the Eagles are in terms of that receiving core, so being able to move CD around and get those matchups, like we did see him in the slot against Eli Ricks. We did see him against James Bradbury when they wanted those, and clearly they were able to exploit matchups And we didn't see as much of that from the Eagles. We saw AJ Brown doing AJ Brown things, and that connection was good, but not great. The first game and 8 games that he hasn't had 100 yards plus, something like that. Well, not 8 games, but it feels like it's been all season, right? Except for the one loss. It's and then there's a couple games at the beginning of the year, but we didn't really see the connection the same way that we have. But AJ Brown made plays when he needed to make plays. I like that they got Dallas Goedert involved early on in important plays. Unfortunately, and we're going to talk about it later, he went down with an injury, but you're starting to see pieces of this offense kind of click, and kind of what we got into last year when they made that Super Bowl run is when they need a play, someone's making it. It's not always A.J. Brown. It's not always Devontae Smith. It's not always Dallas Goedert. It's not always the run game, but different points of the game, they're going to lean on different players. And, again, like, it's unfortunate to see the offense not be able to get those first downs that they needed to ice the game. So I'd like to see some improvement in that regard, but I think we did see, the offense leaning on different parts of that group throughout the game, and that was really exciting to see.
A little bit about what you were saying at the very beginning there. I'm kind of already playing ahead a month from now when they go against Dallas again. Now, if the lineups are a little bit similar where we're not playing, more depth guys, do you think that it becomes more of a constant in that game that Slay is on Lamb?
Yeah, I'd be interested to see. I think it's still going to be the adjustment you see in the red zone. I think like the biggest disadvantage that Darius Slay has is just his long speed. And see, he's just a quicker, faster player. So when you have more space, there's just different ways to exploit that matchup. And then when you get close to the red zone, that's when you saw more man-on-man. You're always going to see more man-on-man down at that area just because it's, there's not as much space. But also you saw a lot more of Darius Slay traveling, which was a nice little change of pace from the defense. And that's just good game planning as well from Sean Desai.
Yeah, I think that was part of his second half adjustments as well, was to kind of, call upon Slay in certain situations, which it did seem like mostly in a red zone because you didn't really hear Lamb's name when he got inside the 20 too often. You just kind of heard it in the middle of the field. Mm-hmm. You heard Ferguson's name, I felt, just as much as Lamb. And I think the reason why we didn't hear Lamb and walk away, even though he had all those yards, we didn't walk away with this resounding like, man, Lamb really owned us, was because he didn't get the touchdowns. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think. Those are the big plays. Obviously, that matters when you get points on the board. What do you think about Eli Ricks? Where do we stand? Because we were praising him pretty heavily last week. Where do we stand about his game against Dallas? The divisional opponent you're going to have to see twice for the rest of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that everyone kind of has their own opinion on how he played. All right, welcome back, Brian.
Sorry, man. I do apologize for that.
It happens, but we're talking Eli Ricks, and he's gonna have those games. He's still a young guy, right? Like, yeah. I think somehow out of the last couple of years, we've gotten used to having pretty outstanding cornerback play, and that's not a given in Philadelphia history. We had a long time there where it was kind of tough sledding, and so he's gonna have those games. He's young. That is a more talented receiving core than a lot of people give credit. Like, CeeDee Lamb's obviously the headliner, but I even like Jalen Tolbert coming out of college last year, and I thought that he might be able to make a splash. Brandon Cooks is no slouch. That's a guy that finds ways to have 1,000-yard seasons with every team he's been with, even if they don't have a good passing game. So none of these guys are bad receivers. Just because CeeDee Line's the headliner doesn't mean there's no other depth. And then, like we said, like, they just found ways to get CeeDee Lamb on Eli Ricks, and that's a tough matchup for even the veteran corners. Like, again, we saw him get the best of Darius Slay. We saw him get the best of James Bradbury. And I mean, I'm sure we can talk about it more, but James Bradbury's has a rough couple games here. Like, having a rough stretch. He's not playing well.
It's been really rough just to see him kind of, I don't want to say regress, but it's reminding me of his last season in New York, where it just looked like he was just out of position, point blank. Like, the defense wasn't his forte. He wasn't fitting what they were doing, which brings me to my question. I want to ask you is, Is it the scheme or is it the players? Because even Darius Slay, for example, like he's not having a shutdown corner kind of season. The safeties look out of position as well. It looks like we're not getting much. It just looks like a very, how can I say this? Very preventive defense where they're focused on the deep ball. They don't want no big plays, but at the same time they're allowing everything to happen in the middle of the field. Is it the scheme? Is it the players? What do you feel is kind of hindering the secondary at this moment?
As far as the secondary, I do kind of believe it is the scheme. I think it's almost a little bit by design, though. Like, okay, we're going to play soft throughout the entire first half, and if we're, the second half adjustments is kind of what Desai's lived and died by pretty relatively recently. Now, there have been games where Desai's defense has pretty much told the story of an entire game, keeping the Eagles in it. You go back to that Jets game. Like Desai's defense was the reason why the Eagles were in that game, because they weren't scoring against another defense that was equally as stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, when you go against teams that are putting up these sort of crazy quarterback numbers, like when you have Howell throwing for those numbers, I always go back to it because it just doesn't make any sense to me. And then you see Dak, where it's like, hey, Dak's not a bad quarterback, but he's certainly not a top 10 quarterback either, but he's playing like it against us. What happens when you go against these playoff teams? They're not just good on one side of the ball, they go on two sides of the ball, and they have a quarterback that's going to be as efficient. I think the scheme is giving too much. The players, I don't think, fit the scheme as far as the talent is concerned. I think he needs more talented personnel to run the scheme as effectively as he wishes. But I just don't think overall, to begin with, it's a good scheme. I think it could be better.
See, here's my issue with it, right? So you mentioned the quarterbacks that were slinging it, right?
Yep.
You have Howell slinging it. You have even Mac Jones in the beginning of your was slinging it.
Yes.
How the hell are these quarterbacks slinging the ball so at ease, but then you stop the number one offense in the league? You held Tua to only about 200-something yards. And they have the best weapons we faced so far. Like there was, in my opinion, there's no reason why you hold the Dolphins to such minimal yardage, but you're allowing the Washington Commanders, you're allowing the Cowboys even to just eat up yards in between the sticks. Like to me, it makes zero sense with the talent you have back there. You needed a safety, right? You got Kevin Byard. You need healthy safeties, right? You got Reed. You got Sidney out there. You have healthy linebackers. You have a healthy defensive line for the most part. Like you have the ingredients. It doesn't make sense as to why the meal you're cooking just tastes bland. Like to me, it makes zero sense. Like, are we progressing or are we regressing? Like you look like you were doing great with your adjustments, and now you're just not doing anything.
For me, it's always going to be a mix of both. Like, unless you have, a completely deficient scheme, which, these are NFL coordinators. They know what they're doing. And again, there's only so many ways to play defense. It's always going to be a bit of both. But, like, it's interesting to me, even in that game, the Eagles had 5 sacks. It didn't really feel like Dak Prescott was running for his life that whole game.
Yeah, not at all.
It didn't feel like we were getting pressure on the quarterback. Obviously, some timely sacks. Don't get me wrong. We had that one drive that Brandon Graham had 2 sacks in a row. Right. There were timely sacks. They needed those sacks. Josh Sweat had a big one as well. Like they happened, but it didn't really feel like it felt like if the Eagles weren't sacking Dak, he had all the time in the world in the pocket. And it was the same. I mean, they went into playing Washington. Sam Howell was the most sacked quarterback in the league by a long shot, and they really couldn't get pressure. And so in terms of the coverage, like that, it makes a huge difference of how much pressure you're getting. Jalen Carter's been hurt. Jordan Davis, I feel like is just going to kind of like, I think we have to get used to it the same way that we kind of got used to Fletcher Cox. Like there's going to be a dip in the season, right? Like we always got to a point before when Fletcher was the guy, he was playing like 80% of snaps. Like it just got to week 8, week 9, he was exhausted, right? And I think that that's just like a reality that we have these big guys that are almost 400 pounds running around the whole time. Like they're just going to take a lot of, beating on the body. And as much as we can, like I think the Eagles, try and get a rotation in, but you're always going to be a bit exhausted. So I think that the bye week's coming at a good time for this defensive line. In terms of the secondary, I think the biggest thing is really turnovers. What did they get against Miami? They got a crucial interception, right? And the last couple of games, like we had that forced fumble, but The Eagles really haven't been creating the turnovers that we're used to. And a lot of that, again, getting pressure up front. You're going to get batted balls, you're going to get bad throws and all that stuff. But, the yardage itself isn't that much worse, right? Like, you're going to let teams pass the ball. And that is one thing that Vic Fangio's defense is always known for, is bend but don't break. Like, you see so many coordinators talk about that, but this is the not true originator, but this is the mantra of this defense, is bend but don't break. And that's been part of Vic Fangio's defense for a long time, is that his schemes get a lot more complicated and a lot more complex for quarterbacks the closer you get to that part of the field. And then the other thing too is just with the switch of defense, like we're seeing a lot less of the 50 front, right? We're seeing a lot less of, extra blitzers, they're sending 4 a lot of the time. So I don't know. Like, I do feel like it's a mix, but at the same time, you can't deny that Darius Slay looks slower. James Bradbury looks slower. You got rookies peppered all over this defense now that are still learning their way. So I don't know. Like, I don't think the scheme's that bad. But I think a combination of both and just kind of hitting that wall right before the bye week has been tough on the Eagles defense.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree with that at all. But it's like, I don't know. I feel like you had your foot on the gas, and we were like, it was something that you were brewing. Like, people were praising Sean Desai for everything he was doing. Like, he was adjusting with guys that should be on anybody else's practice squad, right? Like, he was doing that. But now it's like you have, the Hassan Reddicks of the world, you have the Josh Sweats of the world, you have Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, you have all these guys. And then the second thing, I don't disagree with you at all. Like, Slay looks like Slay looks injured. I'm not gonna sugarcoat. He actually looks injured, and I remember that in the first couple of weeks he was on the injury report because of a knee issue.
Mm-hmm.
James Bradbury looks lost out there. There's no way to sugarcoat it. He looks extremely lost. He's getting beat. You're seeing him mostly getting juked out of the way. Like, it's terrible, right? And I don't know. Like, there has to be some type of creativity in this defense if you're gonna face the Kansas City Chiefs, if you're gonna face the Buffalo Bills. You can't get away with allowing so many yards week in, week out, and win. Like, it's just not gonna happen every week. You're gonna fall flat on your face at some point, especially against quarterbacks that can run. Like, all that open space in the middle of the field, Dak Prescott took advantage of it, which we never see him run that much anymore. Josh Allen's going to do the same. Patrick Mahomes is going to do the same. And we get Dak with another version of Dak in Dallas after all that. It's just, something's got to give, right? Either somebody's got to get off the field, somebody's got to get on the field. You got to get creative at this point. The offense can only do so much, and which we called in the beginning of the season, where it's going to have to be the offense is going to have to overcompensate for this defense, right? But there's something's got to give at some point, I feel like.
I mean, you brought up the middle of that defense where quarterbacks are escaping to, and I feel like it's kind of leading into the conversation we really need to have, which is that linebacking core.
Are you guys feeling a little disappointed in the Kobe Dean? Let's start from the top of it, right? I mean, just looking at the state of the linebackers.
I don't know what to feel about Kobe Dean. Like, I don't think that's, I think this is kind of that adjustment to the NFL that he's still going through. Like, I don't think that there is too much to read into there. I don't think that he's bad. I don't think he's great. I think he's just, sort of making it an adjustment to the NFL, and it's going to come at his pace. But I don't think he's been terrible. That's about what I have on the guy. Like, I haven't seen enough from him to make me say like have a real opinion that he's going to be anything fantastic. I just think that he's a linebacker that's in our core that has a lot of development to go through until anybody can really say otherwise. I think a lot about that with our linebackers anyhow. I don't think that there's any linebacker in our core that sticks out as far as like this dude is going to be something big or this dude's going to be something awful. We don't have a Nate Gary. We don't have like in my mind, like I liked a guy like Jeremiah Trotter back in the day. So we don't have that either. We don't have a in this prime, maybe 1 year with us, Takeo Spikes. We don't have that kind of person. We just don't have some linebacker that's dominating, that's going to strike fear into somebody. We have a group that sometimes gets the job done, but gives up way too much along with the secondary across the middle. We're so dependent on the defensive line creating pressure. it's not even fair to the defense. Like if the defensive line, if something were to happen there, that it falls apart. And you're asking for, like, you're living and dying by the turnover and the pick six by that point, which is an uncomfortable world to be in.
So before you jump into it, so each linebacker has allowed over a completion percentage of over 70%.
Sounds about right.
That's
Not
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing, though. We go back to Gannon's defense, right, before he had the personnel that he wanted. So basically, what, 2 years ago at this point? It was the same. It was, if not a little bit worse. So I kind of think that we're looking at basically the same sort of defense as far as the secondary is concerned, and the same sort of line, and the same sort of defense as far as the linebackers are concerned. And we're expecting a different product. We don't have the personnel quite yet, and I think it's very personnel dependent, this scheme. It all goes right back to that for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting issue to have because, I mean, as much as you want to play coverage, right? Like the biggest thing about the linebacking core is essentially who's got what assignment, right? And it's something you sacrifice penciling in Hassan Reddick as your Sam, right? Like he is a linebacker for this defense. And what that does is it pushes, in my opinion, it pushes Nakobe Dean out of position. Right. And he played Mike in college, and he played in the middle in college, and he moved here. But like oftentimes those undersized Mike linebackers, they get bumped to the Sam position, right? They like to play in space. He's a fast guy. And what this does is, one, it means he always has a run gap. So when he's covering those tight ends, he's always going to be a bit late. He has a run gap, usually an A gap. So he's got to play the A gap and then get out to a tight end. So like it's really hard to cover, right? So at that point, we've seen so many times the Kobe Dean's just chasing the play, making the tackle, right? And he does that really well. He's really fast. He's much faster than a lot of those tight ends. So that puts him in a bad position. But you can't put Hassan Reddick elsewhere on that defense. He's either on the line or he's playing Sam and he's blitzing, right? So that's one of the things you give up there. And I think they're trying to find that balance. Like last year, they didn't matter, because we were playing that true 5-2 where, okay, like screw it, the linebackers just cover everything. And that's where we gave up in the run. I don't know if you guys remember last year, there were some games there where we were just giving up, chunks of yardage in the run game. And that was the sacrifice. It's like, okay, like that's what we're going to put. We're down a linebacker. We're going to play everyone up at the front, and hopefully they can't get that through that first line of defense. And then when they did, chunks, right? So the balance now is like you saw on that play that Ferguson almost scored. They drew it up where Reed Blankenship now is coming into the box to have that run gap first, right? And that's why he's late. And, when it's a safety, it's so much more obvious because he's playing 12 yards off and he looks late. But it's the same concept really for these backers. And you're asking Nakobe Dean now to like play in the middle of your defense at the size he is and how athletic he is and slow everything down and get your run gap and then go cover a tight end. And it's just tough, right? And then you have Nicholas Morrow, you have Zach Cunningham. They're not cover linebackers. Like, that's not who they are. They want to play downhill. They want to go tackle. And when they were allowed to do that early on in games, we saw Zach Cunningham go make plays, right? Like when Nakobe Dean wasn't in, he was playing more Mike, right? And they're moving around a bit more. He had Nicholas Morrow, and they're really playing that middle of the defense. They're doing that well. You put Nakobe Dean back in my opinion, out of position. He should be a Sam. Or even a Will. At least then he's only got to really worry about that run gap, or he's covering, to the weak side. But you're just kind of messing with people's like positions now, just so that you can have that advantage with Hassan Reddick, and that works fine if you're getting home. And we just haven't been getting the home the same way, so it's going to screw you in coverage, in my opinion.
And if I'm going to say there's any linebacker that does kind of pop to me, it definitely was Cunningham, because exactly what you said, Morgan. He did make a few crucial plays, I think, during that game to help get Dallas off the field. So, yeah, Cunningham is the linebacker right now that kind of does show me, what he's worth. And if I was, don't know what his contract situation is off the top of my head, but let's just say that every linebacker needs an extension. Cunningham's the first one I'll give an extension to if I had to twist my arm about it.
So then to fix the defense, right? Putting your defensive coordinator hat on. You're in the bye week. You're facing the Kansas City Chiefs next, Buffalo shortly after. What are you going into that game in Kansas City with? Ideally, like what can you put a Band-Aid on that's going to actually help this defense going forward and help the offense, honestly, as well?
You're going into a dogfight with those two teams. I don't know what you can put a Band-Aid on this that says, hey, this is going to be the Band-Aid that might mitigate Mahomes or Allen. You're going to a dogfight, and it's going to be an offensive dogfight. I think Buffalo, I will say this. I think even though the Philadelphia Eagles lost to the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl, I think Buffalo matches up better against us. I thought it last year. I thought Buffalo, if we saw them in the Super Bowl, it would be a better Super Bowl. As far as competitive, I didn't know how competitive Kansas City. I just knew it'd be a shootout, and it was. Had everything to do. Had basically turned out every way that I thought it would once we saw the matchup. But Buffalo to me is a team that if the offense falters against Buffalo and they actually have they have a good day on the defensive side, can our defense match that energy? Recently, no. And I don't know what you do on defense to prepare this defense, this personnel, this scheme for Mahomes and Allen.
Yeah. I got real somber. I mean, like realistically, Eric's right. I think that the kind of benefit you have now is not necessarily the way the Eagles are playing, but the way that the Chiefs and the Bills are playing. Now the Chiefs are winning games and finding ways to win through Mahomes' magic, and they're pretty damn good at it at winning. The nice thing is that you don't have to cover any premier receivers, and I think that's really been the kind of thorn in the side of the Eagles this year. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Again, like not necessarily afraid of the run game, probably the way it should. Pacheco's a talented running back, and obviously played a huge role in that Super Bowl. But I think the Eagles' real trouble is going to be stopping Travis Kelce, and I think there's multiple ways to do that. I think they actually match up. I mean, who matches up well against Travis Kelce? No one. But the Eagles do have a few guys on the roster. You're talking about Nakobe Dean, like maybe they move him out more. They bump Zach Cunningham more to play the Mike position because that athletically he should be able to hit physically. And if he's playing the physical matchup, that's a tough matchup. But speed wise, should be able to keep up. And then like the chat saying, yeah, Bradley Roby back, which
is key,
again,
very key,
absolutely gonna help a lot, especially when you go to those zones. And I think that's one of the things we talked about. James Bradbury, even losing Avonte Maddox is a huge loss, even just in terms of communication, right? Like now you have a rookie. Who's been pretty fantastic. We have this rookie rotating in. The communication is just not going to be the same. He doesn't have the same understandings of coverage. He doesn't know, how to pass things off the same way. Like he just hasn't seen the looks that a lot of these NFL guys. So getting that vet back is a huge help just in terms of communication. And then behind you have a pretty young core as well. So now Sidney Brown's playing a lot more. And you also have Reed Blankenship back. Again, just young. So the communication's going to be an issue. And then, I mean, when you're talking about the Bills, they have 2 weeks to kind of, 2 weeks to kind of figure it out. You get them on a short week, which really sucks. But I don't think this is the same Bills team that, I
don't think it's a team to fear, honestly. I think that's where you're getting at.
Right. I think what happens is if you let them hang in the game and you give them an opportunity to win, they'll capitalize. So what the Eagles need to do with the Bills is essentially do what they did to the Cowboys for the first 3 quarters. And again, they were down at half, but came out after half and kind of just dominated them and then finish. And that's the biggest thing is the Eagles need to take this bye week to figure out a way to consistently finish games because it's like for the rest of the stretch, except for probably the Giants and the Cardinals, these might be close games, every single one of them.
Absolutely. And I also believe that against those two teams in particular, it starts with stopping the run. And I don't believe I don't take Pacheco to be a guy very lightly. I think that he can, obviously burn against any defense. But if you can kind of force them to pass and the live and die on the pass, I know it's Mahomes and I know it's Allen, but you're forcing them to do one thing and dictating their pace. That's the best chance I think this Eagles defense has against dynamos like those two teams.
And I think so. Going back a little bit, I think the Super Bowl loss prepared them very well for this season because you see now the Eagles finding ways to win, finding ways to put away teams, even in the most unorthodox situations, right? You don't expect CeeDee Lamb to catch the ball at nearly the 5-yard line and not get into the end zone, right? But at the same time, you're seeing that maturity. You're seeing that level of okay, guys, hey, we should have won the Super Bowl, to be honest. If Patrick Mahomes wasn't yelling at the referee, hey, like, there's a personal a hold right there, they wouldn't have called it, let's be honest. But you're seeing this team being able to kind of overcome adversity, which I think is a big plus.
Sure.
But the key thing is it's the defense, right? Like, you don't want the defense to be the reason that this team doesn't make it to the Super Bowl. And you have Jalen Hurts playing on a bum knee. You get me? Like, Hurts is doing everything that's expected of him and more. Like, the kid is definitely probably, if not top one, he's definitely top 2 pocket passer in the league right now. There's no question about it. Since he's staying in the pocket, he's just been
Number
so
one being
efficient.
CJ Stroud.
Can we talk? Listen, I got
Before we jump into the Stroud stuff real quick, I don't, and I just know because it's going to go in a direction that I'm not familiar with. Just real quick, the Hurts thing with the knee, until the Dallas game, I don't buy it. Until he got hit and he kind of had to walk off the field and like went that awkward angle, I do not buy this bummed leg thing. I think it's blown out of proportion. It's a
bone bruise. I mean, that's pretty. It sucks.
I mean, I think now it's a bone bruise. I
think what it was a bone bruise that was very well taken care of until DeMarcus Lawrence's head smacked it right where we shouldn't have had, and it brought it back to fruition, right? But again, like, even with that, like, he's chucking it 50 yards down the field and trusting his offensive line. Like
didn't seem to stop him.
Yeah, let's talk about Jalen Hurts, right? We still have a lot of time.
You want to go to Stroud real quick or no?
No, I'm gonna get to that. Jalen Hurts, when he first came in, we did not expect to see this level of play from Jalen Hurts, right? This is what we expected out of Carson Wentz as an Eagles fan, right? You thought Carson was going to be this gunslinger in the pocket. You thought Carson was going to be making his big plays and being that guy for Philadelphia. But Jalen Hurts, he deserves so much respect of his growth year in and year out. Again, like, the guy from being considered a running quarterback, right? He's not running out of pocket much at all. And he's picking apart defenses week in and week out. He's settled down with the turnovers. What I was gonna say about CJ Stroud is somebody in our fantasy group chat, not my PSN one, a different one, sent a QB list of the top QBs in the league. And it was very alarming in my opinion, right? Because
it was gross. I read it. I nope.
So
Purdy, dude, come on.
They have Lamar Jackson number 1, right? Patrick Mahomes number 2, Tua number 3, Stroud number 4, Jalen Hurts number 5, Goff, Allen, Burrow, Herbert, and Purdy round out the top 10.
Purdy shouldn't be a top 10, and what is Stroud doing top 5? Get out of here. That's my commentary.
But my thing is, like, look, Mahomes, he's having a good season, right? But Jalen and him have an equal amount of turnovers, and Jalen's right there with his passing yards and his completion percentage, and he has all those seven rushing yards, 7 rushing touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Lamar's a top 5 quarterback, right? But he's not the best in the league at this moment. Like, I can't say that.
Yeah,
Tua's not better than Hurts, in my opinion.
No.
You take away Tyreek Hill, who is Tua. What happened to Jared Goff?
I don't.
He's kind of they've kind of fallen off, right?
Yeah, that defense is just still young.
We'll see this week. I think if you give Goff this week, when they kind of give him back a measuring stick to see how he goes, because I think he had basically like 2 bad weeks. It's pretty much it. I have him on my fantasy team. I didn't start him in the last 2 weeks. No, like, seriously, because I bit into it. Like, I won with him putting up a duck, and then I started Baker Mayfield to give you guys an idea of where I went reading into that. No, like, I don't think Goff is bad. I mean, I know what I just said out loud, but at the same time, it's like I do think that what's our criteria of a good quarterback? It's somebody that has to be in the top 10. Because
I think a well-rounded,
he's consistent. I think he is well-rounded.
Yeah, I think a well-rounded quarterback.
He has no mobility to compensate. He's got no mobility to compensate for a banged-up O-line. I mean, that's all it is to me.
That's fair too, though. That is very fair. He's not in a great position to, to play at optimum strengths. I think he is an 8 to 10. Is that where he landed on the list?
Who, Goff?
Yeah, Goff on that list, 8 to 10.
I mean, there's also
6 actually.
bad
okay, that's a little bit
quarterbacks this year.
further.
Like there's
A
so
little bit
many
up there.
really, really terrible quarterbacks.
There really is. And now, do you think
It's a weird
being
year,
that
right? Yeah.
it is? Do you think being that there's so many bad quarterbacks out there, like people are just kind of like sweeping, like because to me, like Jalen Hurts is in the past 3 weeks, he's completely turned it around. I think he has 1 turnover, and he has about more than a 2 handful of touchdowns.
I think what takes away from Jalen Hurts, and it's a weird, like I don't know why. It's a weird phenomenon why it happens, but it's because AJ Brown has been so fucking good. Like you look at some of the catches AJ Brown's been making, like just ridiculous. And like when you see a highlight like that, you're never like, wow, what a great throw by the quarterback. Because like even that one-handed one against Washington, like that is in a perfect position. Don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful one-handed catch. Most receivers wouldn't come down with that, but the ball is perfect, right? You saw Smitty's touchdown again, like just perfect. Like there's so many great throws that get overlooked because AJ Brown is making a spectacular catch, right? That I think that has been like one of the issues. Like you look at Lamar, like who's he throwing to? Like everyone says he's great because like who's on that team?
But
Nelson Aguilar.
When the time out, their wide receivers are pretty. I mean, Devin Duvernay, they have
OBJ.
Rashad Bateman, they have OBJ, they have Zay Flowers. Like they have pretty legit wide receivers. If you
They
ask
have
me.
Andrews still, right?
I think legitimately,
Yeah.
Zay Flowers is the best receiver on that team, and he would be the 3rd best receiver on the Eagles.
Oh yeah, that's true. I mean, it's Smitty.
I mean, because then you consider, okay, so is Zay Flowers at this early in his career better than an aged Julio Jones, though? It at least makes you think, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, it's an aged Julio Jones.
The debate
It's
will
an aged
be
Julio
between,
Jones, but it's a Julio Jones that knows the NFL.
Yeah,
well, the
That's
debate
more
would
than-
be
that's the
between him
thing.
and Zacchaeus, and I mean, you know, the upside. Like I feel like he's a better. Yeah, he's going to be a better receiver than Zacchaeus.
Who's your MVP at this point in the season? Because I think we're pretty much at the midway point of the season.
For Philly or for the
No,
league?
for the league. MVP. I mean, MVP for Philly is you know.
I think it's AJ Brown for Philly, but for the league, I think AJ Brown's in consideration. Oh man, I actually would probably put him in my top 3. I'm not even going to try to be biased about it. Now I would actually have him in front of Hurts, which doesn't put him top 3.
So Doug has AJ Brown as the MVP of this season so far. But like Morgan said, like and a key thing, right, of that AJ Brown one-handed catch, AJ and Jalen mentioned that they practiced that in practice to be on target like that. I mean, you got to have a hell of an arm to make that pass, and you also have to have a hell of an arm to make an accurate pass to Smitty when you have a 17% completion chance of that 50-yard bomb. Like, I'm not trying to be biased at all, but I just feel like what Jalen's doing on the field right now is very overlooked because people are still kind of hindering him due to the turnovers that happened early on.
I mean, realistically, the safest bet for MVP is to pick the quarterback of the team with the best record.
And
right?
that is
So like
didn't happen last season.
Right.
That's
It didn't happen last season.
like
But also, like, just looking at so the Chiefs have the Eagles, right? Then they have the Raiders, Packers, Bills, Patriots, Raiders again,
Wow.
Bengals, and Chargers.
so it's an
So
easy.
Mahomes will have ample time. Like the gauntlet the Eagles are going through is much harder than the ones the Chiefs. You know, the Chiefs get the Bills, the Chiefs get the Bengals, who turn out to be a team, right? They just had to figure it out. But like, you know, if the Mahomes Joe Burrow, like again, like Mahomes versus Joe Burrow in the second last week, you don't think that's going to matter to MVP voters? Like,
Oh, absolutely.
If Mahomes wins that, it's not like again versus Jalen Hurts taking on the Giants. Who
Is Burrow really back in the MVP race though?
No, I'm just saying, like
It's just that kind of a heavyweight battle.
battles.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
Mahomes, it's like a reference point, right? So you get
Right.
you get like it could very well be the Chiefs versus the Eagles game that decides who wins MVP. It could very well be that game, right? Like if Hurts puts on a show, that could be it. But then like, you know, you get him against Josh Allen again, so he's got to win that matchup. Like I just don't see if the Eagles come out with the best record in the league, I don't see how it's not Jalen Hurts.
So say the Eagles beat both Chiefs and Bills back-to-back weeks, right?
Jalen Hurts is the MVP.
Yeah, because you look at strength of schedule, and I think it speaks louder than AJ Brown. But at the moment, I think I actually would put AJ Brown MVP.
And it's weird because I mean I don't disagree
And it
with
goes
that logic,
hand in
right?
hand, dude. For real, like
Yeah. It really does. I mean, there is no AJ Brown season without Jalen Hurts, right? But there's no Jalen Hurts season without AJ Brown because you don't see much going to Smitty. You don't see much going to Dallas Goedert, who you won't see for the next 4 weeks, right?
Travis Kelce.
Well, Travis Kelce is probably
But that doesn't seem to matter
just because of the whole Taylor Swift fanfare. But we'll talk about that next week because I don't want to talk about it now.
I don't want to talk about that at all. Like,
I don't think we'll be able to. I don't think we'll be able to avoid that, dude. I don't think we'll be able to avoid it.
come on.
We got it better. We got a better Swift.
We do have a better Swift, but that Swift has not been produced in the last couple of games.
Let's talk about that since we're on the state of the offense now. Do you think that the 2 fumbles that he had kind of inserts Gainwell or Penny more often?
I think what I'm really pissed off about is that Rashad Penny only had 2 carries, and he had 1 carry that was really damn good. He was carrying these defenders. Like, I don't get. I saw I could be wrong. I could be reading some bullshit that they just put out there, right? But I saw somebody put out on Instagram or Twitter that Nick Sirianni said that he judges his running backs by past performances. Rashad Penny hasn't played to have a past performance, but you have Kenny Gainwell who struggled in a lot of his past performances. I mean, without that beautiful play call, he doesn't score a touchdown. He's been struggling all season, but you haven't put Rashad Penny back there who can help you wear down defenses.
I would be interested to see how the offense has to change with Rashad Penny. Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing is like because both DeAndre Swift and Kenny Gainwell, even though Kenny Gainwell is not as good at it as DeAndre Swift, are one cut downhill zone running backs. Not that Rashad Penny can't do that, but he was in Seattle, and Seattle, is a lot more downhill, pound the rock kind of team. So I'd be interested to see coming out of this bye, now that they have a week to kind of like we already saw a couple carries, which is it's only a couple carries, but it's a lot more. Like it's more than he was getting in the previous couple of games, right? The season, realistically.
But what if Boston Scott comes back and he's perfectly fine out of his personal matter?
I mean,
that was the deal. All right.
I think they know what Boston Scott's bringing to the table, and I think he'll probably get his carries. But what I see is more Rashad Penny, especially later in games. Like that's what I think you're gonna see true 4-back rotation.
But it should be like that. It should to me that against the Cowboys it would have been perfect. Like sure. You need to wear down the clock, right? Rashad Penny should be in there.
Yeah,
I don't disagree. Against teams that are actually great, like Dallas is pretty solid on defense, and I think we can all, obviously see that we just played them. But I mean, those teams that are solid against the run, it makes so much sense to put Penny in there just to wear down guys. In hockey terms, that's a 4th line. You go out there and you put out the 4th line just to wear down the opponent. So the other, guys can score. Where you're going to score Hurts, you're going to score a Swift. It looks like Gainwell is going to find his way in there anyhow. So why don't you wear down, 3rd downs with Penny? Because the 4th down, you're probably going to go for it anyhow on the brotherly shove. So if you're not in there quite yet, if you're not in the position, you might as well just get Penny in there to get his carry and see what of it.
It's true. But I'm very curious to see if down the stretch that they're going to rely on Rashad Penny at all, because you don't sign that kind of talent for no reason. Like I've never seen the Eagles waste the talent away outside of the guy from last season that they traded for, Robert Quinn.
I
don't know if that was
talent, though. I think that's a little bit different. I think in the same way that I was trying to just right now go to bat for Julio Jones, that might be the same sort of deal. So.
I mean,
right.
Realistically, the injury to Cam Jurgens, I think, hurts a lot more than we think. Just because, what do the Eagles love to do? They love to pull. They love to get guys on the run. And right now, Jason Kelsey's the good guy doing it. Dickerson's good too, but they're just not going to give as much to Steen if he's playing or Apetta. And I think it really does matter. Like as much as I would like to say like Rashad Penny comes in and he's like just a better runner, like the Eagles haven't been great running the football the last couple of games. They need to get better as a whole, right?
I'm sorry, I had to take a second. I saw Brian just smack himself one. Yeah,
smack the headphone cable right out of I'm having a rough night, man. I'm having a very rough night.
Dude, it's a situation, man, where I look at this Russian attack and it's hard to sit there and finally, find something to kind of bite at because I think it's been when you look at the rushing attack, I think it's been more consistent than the passing game, and we've just spent 15 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever it was, talk about how AJ Brown should be the MVP of the league. So in that case, it's like we probably want to see we want to see Penny out there so much more, but at the same time, it's like, why would they go out of their way to change something? I'm playing devil's advocate here, but why would he go out of their way to change something that's like elite in the league right now? They're a top 5 rushing attack, top 5.
Keep your quarterback healthy. Your quarterback has a bone bruise, right? Keep him healthy. He only threw 23 times against Dallas.
None of those guys are pass blocking for you.
That's the thing.
No, but I'm saying if you're running the ball consistently, right? If you're running the ball, if you're not doing a 2 runs and then pass, right? If you're doing a run, there was run, play action, run, pass here. Like if you're throwing so many things into the mix, like you're giving Jalen Hurts to have longevity this season, right? And that's the key. Like Eagles are not going anywhere without Jalen Hurts. This is not Carson Wentz and Nick Foles again. Marcus Mariota is not saving anybody. Jalen Hurts is the key to anything that the Eagles want Super Bowl wise, right? Best way to keep him healthy is by running the ball.
Yeah, they definitely have to get that going.
Could you imagine? This is never going to happen.
Don't you dare say anything about him getting injured like that,
Chip Kelly would be fucking...
Yo, he'll lose his mind, bro.
Yeah. If Marcus Mariota leads the Eagles, we might have to apologize to Chip Kelly. Like, that might be... Maybe he didn't get his player that he needed.
Bring back DeMarco Murray. Bring back Jordan Matthews. Josh, where you at?
Bring back 90 screens a game and all verts.
We're trading AJ Brown. There was that online rumor that said blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Like,
unlimited shotgun calls.
I guess that, is Chip Kelly actually the GM of the Tennessee Titans? Let's make that a conspiracy theory. Let's put that one out there.
I don't want to relive anything like that. And there's no way that's gonna happen. Jalen Hurts is a trooper. He's gonna man the ship. Mm-hmm. So before we end the podcast, confidence level going into the rest of the season, I feel very strong. I'm pretty sure you guys will give your take. I feel very strong about it. I think the Eagles will figure it out. It seems like the Eagles always figure it out in the second half of the season. After starting 2-5, and then Nick Sirianni gave the Garden speech. The Eagles went on to reach the playoffs. Sorry, that's my dog. Last year, they kept on trucking along. Even they didn't win any games with Gardner Minshew, right? But they kept trucking along, even with people falling apart. They did miss Dallas Goedert last year for almost like 4 or 5 weeks, right? So same thing, same scenario. But I truly feel like this team is like this whole gauntlet. I feel like it's being made to be bigger than it is just because of the names on paper, right? I feel like this team is very well equipped to handle the adversity of this gauntlet. Do I see them going undefeated? Absolutely not. I do see them taking out one or two of the Bills and the Chiefs, right? I do see them possibly splitting with Dallas, but outside of that, like you have Seattle, you have New York, you have Arizona.
You have the 49ers.
No, wait, come on. Listen, let's be honest. If San Francisco's coming into Philly, do you honestly think they're gonna make it out there alive?
I think some of the guys on that roster would sacrifice losing every single other game just to beat the Eagles.
Do you think they're selling their soul to make it happen?
Yeah, 100%. I think they would do whatever they can. Like they could go 1-17, and as long as that win is against the Eagles, or 1-16, like they're gonna be fine. That's how petty that team is.
All right, so we'll get the 49ers that game, but I still think they finished.
I don't know. I'm never going to get the 49ers much of anything outside of like a Jerry Rice jersey that might have gave me. I'll give it back. I'm not giving them anything. You know what team I will give, though? Even if the Eagles were to beat the Bills and the Chiefs, the one team that scares me is the Seahawks.
Really? I feel like Geno's not having a season he had last year.
Look at the track record, dude. Philadelphia absolutely sucks against Seattle.
Are we in Seattle or are we playing in Philly?
We're in Seattle.
My head. We're in Seattle. Ooh, okay, so that's not good. That's not good. Like we're starting on that note right there. That is not great.
Wait, what is that again? What is that?
I can see Eric trying to go to bed tonight and just the Seattle Seahawks just heavy breathing behind him. And he's just like,
They got 12
Go
men
away,
on the
go
field,
away.
and the referee has never called it. It's kind of BS if you ask me.
I don't. I mean, this is not the Russell Wilson Seattle Seahawks. Like, this is not Legion of Boom. I'm not.
But that's fine though. Like that's the thing. Like no. Hear me out. We had before Russell Wilson, we had a problem with Matt Hasselbeck's Seahawks. Okay,
True.
like Geno Smith isn't Russell Wilson's Seahawks, but he's probably a little bit better than Matt Hasselbeck's Seahawks, or at least in the same caliber of. Like, look, dude, DK kind of does whatever he wants with the Eagles. It's kind of always been that way.
I mean, this season he doesn't look like he's doing much of anything. I feel like,
On
right?
my fantasy team, he's having a good time.
I mean, and Bobby Wagner is the best linebacker in the league apparently right now. So
let's look at numbers. Now you guys have me on reeling back.
Bobby Wagner is the top rated linebacker right now.
That's the only team that kind of puts it, because I feel like with Dallas, like, you know, okay, if you were to split one with Dallas or whatever, but at the same time, I think we got Dallas's best. We're ready for Dallas when we go to Dallas because we already saw it, and you know what? Maybe Dallas was kind of close.
Time out. Did Seattle lose to the Ravens 37-3 last week?
Oh yeah, they got fucked up.
Yeah, that is fair, but also
all right, we're not talking about Seattle anymore, bro.
And the messed up thing, though, guys,
it's not the Ravens. Like Lamar isn't sticking his nose in Jalen Hurts' business.
I mean,
the one game. All right.
The one game we haven't mentioned, fellas, is the Jonathan Gannon revenge game. And
well, we're not worried about that. I think our Jonathan Gannon's defense.
Not worried about Pee Wee Gannon.
Jonathan Gannon's defense.
Yeah, I just can't wait for the pressers leading up to that and talking about how Jonathan Gannon, like, he's just talking about his time in Philly. Like, I want to hear it. Like, it just seems like that guy that, like, told the teacher, like, reminded the teacher about take home homework, and then has like a press conference about it.
Do you think
like,
he'll do the robot voices again? Because that's sick. I want to quote that.
I just can't wait. Like, it's just gonna be like headline material every time that guy talks. It's just like, this guy is almost a human. He tries his best. Like,
look, I'm just gonna say it. I'm not fearful of the 5-3 Seattle Seahawks. I don't think it can be an issue. I think
game, dude. I'm telling you, that's a trap game.
I don't see it as a trap game.
I do right now, far and away.
But I do believe that the Eagles will be better off than a lot of people are thinking. I do think that at this rate, like, this team looks like the number one seed. I mean, even as bad as they're playing, let's be point blank. They're not playing any complete game yet. Like, they're not hitting on all cylinders.
You want to go to round the horn real quick with the tight end game? About what we can do possibly maybe with Goddard real quick with him being out. Want to go out?
Do you want to go around the horn with the tight end game?
I sort of do. Since I brought it up real quick, I sort of do. Dude, what do you think? Do you think they make a signing?
No. They got Albert O, bro. He's the second coming of Brent Selleck.
Okay.
I mean, I just feel like they haven't really used the tight end this year. Like, I mean, Dallas Goedert
just started to.
Barely, bro. Barely.
70 yards worth in most games recently.
50 yards in the last game.
11 personnel with one of the backups. They'll rotate them in, but like,
this is gonna be what's gonna end up happening.
Okay, I'm not opposed to that. To be
Julio's going to start his second career as a tight end and go to the Hall of Fame as a tight end.
I don't think we're going to sacrifice Goddard for Julio, though. I mean, I was with you at the first part, but I don't know
Julio
about the second
Jones just becomes Antonio Gates the end. Stoll can block. See, I've never looked. I was fine with Stoll, but I'm talking about the receiving aspect.
Calcaterra can receive.
Can we just sub that out?
Yo. Where's this podcast going?
Is concussed right now. Like, I don't think he's in any shape to receive.
Well, but that's where you get from Albert O. I feel like Albert O is the best of Stoll and Calcaterra together, right? You have Jack Stoll out there for blocking. You bring Albert O in, and you have everything you need. Or you run 4 wide receivers out there. 4 wide receivers out there with Zacchaeus, Julio Jones, Smitty, and Brown. Like, this team has the weapons that they need. It's just a matter of using the damn weapons, like Rashad Penny. Like, use the freaking weapon you have, bro.
Yeah,
let's see what this has. With that being said, I've been seeing Duck over here the entire time grill me. So I am gonna fulfill.
Say
They're
it.
going to fulfill that wish. The Eagles will
Say it.
lose the bye week.
Wait.
No, they lost the bye week. Sorry, it's already said they lost
It's
it.
prediction. It's prediction time. It's Eric's
Yeah, it's
favorite time of the podcast.
Favorite time. Yeah, it's great. They lost. They lost the bye week. The end. Everybody's healthy. See, Doc? It's great. Now that we can end the podcast on my favorite time being prediction time.
Go Birds.
Go Birds!
Yes, sir.